If you saw the last video on this channel, we basically took our pretty boring new build garden, dug the border out, got a load of wood delivered, built some things that vaguely resemble planters, painted them, put them into place, had a bit of snow. Once the snow cleared, we reinforced them, and then we added some lining, and that's where we got to in the previous video. Since then, we finished the project off by finishing the process of lining, we added a load of soil, and then we put our patio back together. So with that done, I wanted to add a bench to the back where the plants are in the video right now. It looks a little something like this. So I'm going to talk you through how I built that. So I wanted the benches I'm building to be modular, which means that I can move them to be in any position on the planter I want. All the planters are the same width, so I know that if I build a bench that is of a particular width, I can just place it wherever I want to on the planters. And that means the design needs to be as simple as possible. So all I'm building here is basically going to be a platform with a lip on either side that will hook over the edge of the planter. So if you saw the previous planter build, or in fact any of the other projects that are on my channel, you'll know that I try and combine simplicity in design with cost effectiveness basically for everything that I build. And that's no different here. So I'm using decking board that was reduced in B&Q. It'll last a long time outside, and yeah, in terms of cost effectiveness, I didn't find anything better. I recognize I've said a lot so far without actually having talked through what I'm doing. So what you're looking at here are the long sort of lip pieces that are going to hook over the edge of the planters. I basically cut all of the slats that are going to serve as the platform. I cut those to width. I then measured those against this long piece to see exactly how many would fit for a particular length. And then I cut using the crosscut sled to that length. And here you're going to see that I'm just laying them out, checking they fit correctly, and then I'm going to nail and screw them into place. I learned a bit of a lesson here that the nail gun doesn't like to go through knots. So you can see the nail just blew straight through the bottom of the board, and it actually went into my workbench and caused a giant hole, which was fun. So I had to get the Dremel out to cut that nail off, and then I could carry on as normal. And that really is the bench done. It's that simple. You're going to see in a second a couple of shots of how it hooks onto the planter and how that sort of modularity is going to work. But yeah, that's the bench done. I've got to build a couple of side rests or drink stands, or whatever you want to call them, in a second, and I'll talk you through how I did those because they're a little bit more involved. And if you're wondering if it's comfortable to sit on and if it even bears weight, I did actually get all my friends together and we sat down on it, as you can see here, and tested it, and it was perfectly fine. So with that done, it was time to build these, I'm calling them, well, what am I calling them? I'm going to call them drinks tables, I think. And basically I was dealing with the scrap offcuts that I had at this point. And I had a rough idea of how I wanted to work. It's basically the same design, but raised platforms a little bit so that they're a bit higher than the bench. And you can see here, I'm just mentally sort of working out as I go what material I've got and how I'm gonna build these. This build follows a very similar initial few steps to how I built the bench. So I'm firstly cutting slats to the same width as the planters, because those are gonna act as a platform, and I can then measure 3 of these slats, which is going to be the total width of the table, against the scrap offcuts I had from the bench build, and that's going to give me the point I need to cut them. I can set a stop on the table saw sled, and then I can repeat loads of cuts for all of the different lengths that I need. So in order to get sort of the maximum height that I could out of these side tables, I didn't want the lip to sit as far over as it did on the bench. And I think this is going to make a lot more sense when you sort of see it later, but basically I marked out 1 deck board thickness from the bottom, and that's going to become the new lip on the planter. I then wanted to marry up where the benches meet these side tables. So that's what you see I'm doing here. I'm marking 1 deck board thickness on the edge of the lips, putting a 45-degree angle on it, which I'm then going to cut out, and hopefully when the two side tables meet the bench, they are going to, yeah, marry up. There's a lot to talk about. I don't know if that made any sense, hopefully it did. To make the side tables taller than the bench, I not only needed to reduce the lip that was overhanging the planter, but I also needed to double up the sort of side wall, I guess you'd call it, by using 2 decking boards. So I had to take some measurements, and then I could work out how wide I needed to cut a sort of brace piece of wood that I would use to connect the 2 decking boards together. If you have seen any of my previous videos, I'd be quite interested to know what you think of this sort of style of commentary versus some of my other videos where I came in with a script. I haven't got one this time. I'm trying to sort of figure out new ways of workflow in terms of video production, and also trying to find ways to make sort of the conversation a bit more natural. Here I'm just using 2 deck boards to center the brace piece. I'm then pinning that in place, and I will pre-drill and screw it all together. So I realized I made a mistake here in that I didn't cut the brace pieces short enough to allow for side walls to be added that would close in the sides of the tables. So to resolve this, I raised the table saw blade to the height or thickness of the supporting brace pieces, and I then set my stop block to be the exact width of the sides of the tables. I can then add a decking board between the stop block and this piece, and in theory when I run that through the table saw, it should cut off the perfect width of a decking board from the brace piece. That's all the pieces cut at this point, and the side tables can just be assembled. So all I'm going to do is pin this together in the first instance. I'll then come back, pre-drill a hole, and drive in some screws to do it. They ended up working as intended, but I didn't like the gaps that existed. They only existed because I ran out of wood and I was being a bit tight, but I decided I couldn't live with them, so I went and bought some more wood, and I closed up those gaps by adding a few more slats to the sides. This project done. It's not a very complicated project, so the video probably didn't need to be as long as it is, but I think there's useful sort of tips and tricks that I used along the way to make these simple projects. So hopefully you found some of that useful. If you got any feedback on, I don't know, camera angles, my annoying voice, number of friends I don't have, then yeah, leave them in the comments and I'll do better next time.